years, each rainstorm had formed a harmless pool beneath this tree. Today, though, the water overflowed in a new direction. Mother Fox knew it was time to lead the family out of the den. Number one son and little sister were quick to follow, but other brother was too slow and too timid. Rescue seemed hopeless. Mother Fox abandoned the den, and the youngster she couldn't save. Next morning, things dried out, and the badger was ready to check on that den he'd spotted around here, somewhere. Huh. Where'd that fool thing go to? Let's see. He'd been that way. Looking this way. Yep, should be right where he was standing. Good enough. If that hole was down there, he'd find it. About to get a lot better around here. The badger is one animal willing to share a den with another. Wow, the badger really dug these digs he'd dug. Of course, he intended to make a couple of changes, and if the other occupant didn't mind, he'd get started right now. Badger was highly opinionated about everything, and especially about how to decorate a den. Like this berry bush. All he wanted was outdoor scenery for indoor greenery. But the fox figured the badger was the new family provider. So, while the interior decorator was going for more decorations, the fox was eating up the accent color. The final touch, a small spray of evergreen to grace the vestibule. Then he was ready for breakfast. From berries to pine needles was too big a change. He'd just follow this new friend and learn for himself how to shop in nature's supermarket, such as Mouse Meadow here. Right away, the fox started looking for berries in the produce department. The badger headed straight for the delicatessen. He figured to have the specialty of the house, a mouse. Hunting around here was like flipping a coin. Might come up heads, might be tails. All in all, this was a good place for a young fox to learn something about the art of catching mice and something more about the art of self-defense. That happened because a wayfaring bobcat got curious about the food in these parts. That badger had just become a hero, and the fox couldn't wait to tell him about it. Getting well acquainted was a little slow at first. In time, though, they were sharing food as well as a den, and that had become a place of ease and comfort in dozens of different ways. Being young and kind of restless, the fox would take off alone now and then, see if he could scare up a little fun. For him, today was a day to play. But this bunny wasn't any playmate, especially for a fox. old girl had good reason for ordering outsiders back outside. In fact, there were several good reasons in there. This was just the first one. And now, for the time being, the fox was a spectator at a bear cub carnival. There's nothing more full of fun than a bunch of grizzly bear cubs. The fox was just itching for some of that action. Finally, one of the cubs decided to cut him in. Well, about now, Mom realized that, like it or not, it was feeding time in Grizzly Land. There may have been another mother or two in that den, but even so, nursing that tribe was two-stage torture. The first shift came on rough and ready. The second shift was even worse. Still, youth must be served. Well, it had been a good day's fun. Now it was time to head for home. Even in midwinter in this part of the Northwest, the valleys are usually clear of snow. Down here, the only change is food gets a little scarce along in December. like today. Nothing serious. The badger and the fox were still friends, but there was a big change in the making. It all started because just up the hill a ways, one of these wolves decided to stop playing and go hunting. The badger had a sharp ear and a sixth sense for trouble, and both of them told him to hole up. It's not likely the fox saw a target and took a shot at it, but the effect was the same. It was a near miss, but no matter. The fox had time to run, and it put the wolf off on another track. Of course, all that gave the badger time to get away. The trouble was, the fox didn't know about the rest of the wolves. But he'd find out about them, and soon, too. Not far from here, a Christmas tree wholesaler was hauling out his first load of the season. He was heading for the right place at the right time. Bah, humbug. Just on the other side of this mountain was the shipping yard for Christmas trees, and that's where this cargo was going. Of course, the fox didn't know where he was going or whether he wanted to go there. It didn't make any difference, though. That particular question was about to be decided for him. He was in a bind, no doubt about it. But at least it was the kind of a problem he could really get his teeth into. Footloose and way up in the high country when the big blizzard hit. In the aftermath of the storm, one mighty hungry young fox went on the prowl. It got to be lunchtime, and the fox was still looking for breakfast. Then he picked up a sort of strange trail and a kind of familiar scent. Could be food. Sure worth a follow-up. These were actually snowshoe tracks made by the trapper for a local game farm. First time, he wasn't all that smart. He was just lucky. But at least now he knew something about traps. What he didn't know was that he was heading toward the brightest spot in his whole future. Just around this bend, he discovered that there's a big difference in foxes. The female fox is called a vixen. The male is the dog. Now, this sweet young vixen was all shook up about being locked up. Then this handsome dog showed up, and things started looking up. Actually, this vixen had been orphaned early and didn't know much about the wide, wicked world. On the other hand, our hero at least knew a little bit about traps, so maybe he did know what to do and how to do it. Anyhow, when he pulled that break out, it was an open invitation to romance. Of course, he'd been looking for food, but that was all right. When you're in love, the whole world's delicious. For these young foxes, the rest of the winter was like a long midsummer night's dream. the time the white curtain of winter had turned into the golden carpet of spring, nature had taught her innermost secrets to the pair of young foxes. So now the vixen needed a nursery, and very soon, too. Her mate led the way towards a certain place, in a certain valley, and with a certain amount of luck, they'd get there in time. Of course, the place still had an occupant, but under the circumstances, he'd have to be evicted, one way or another. Must be hearing things. Might as well take a look around, though. His nap was all shot anyway. That left the coast clear, exactly what the fox had counted on. And so it was Mother in the nursery and Father on the lookout. The badger went farther and stayed longer than he intended to. So big things had happened at the den before he got around to coming back. The fox seemed to realize there wouldn't be any trouble from the badger. And the badger for sure realized his bachelor pad had become a nursery. So from these small events came big changes. By nature, the badger would have no part of any family life. Somewhere he'd find another den, maybe another friend. It was best that way, too. But now, both the fox and the badger sensed that this parting would be permanent. After all, the place was a family den, and the Footloose fox had come home with a family.